Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Hopefully you can hear me. We're just gonna wait a couple more minutes to see if more people can join us here. But in the meantime, if you want to chat in where you're calling from and what you would like to learn today, I'd love to hear from you. So if you can see the chat box, you may need to scroll down a little bit on the right-hand side. And also Vavara is helping me. So if you have any questions, just type in your chat question and she'll be able to let me know because I can't really hear you guys. This is not quite like the classroom we have at UCSD, so we'll have to make use of the chat, okay? And again, if you're just joining us, if you can find the chat box, which is on the right-hand side, if you can scroll down a little bit, just chat in where you're calling from or where you're chatting in from. If it's San Diego, at lunch somewhere, at work, that'll give me a sense of where you guys are all calling in from and, give me a chance to kind of understand the audience. And again, we're just going to wait a little bit for a couple more people to join us since I did see the RSVP list. And yes, do let Vavara know. Yeah, so right now I just have the screen up for the slide. So let me switch over back to me. Hi, everybody. So those of you I haven't met, I'm Kelly Huang. And happy that you can join me here. If you can, see if you can chat in where you're dialing in from. Just like to know how many of you are joining me and also whether you're at work, you're dialing in from school, or you're at lunch. That would kind of help me know how to best answer back and know where you're calling from. So again, if you all can chat in. And also Vavara is helping me out, just kind of collecting questions. And also, if you have any technical difficulties, she can help me out with that. And yeah, we'll just wait a little bit longer. It's only about 12:31 now, so I know lunch is a tough time. So thank you for dialing in, all of you. And yeah, today I'm going to share more about strategic networking because that is something that's very important to understand when you start building your network and when you start thinking about the kind of network you want to build to leverage your career and leverage you, the brand. And so some of you that sit through my class know that I talk about personal branding. But also the other key component of that is your strategic network. So that's what we're going to cover today. But again, if you can chat in what you like to learn today, that would really help me. And also, if somehow I don't get to your question in this webinar, we have the 8 o'clock webinar, and that one will be more extended at 60 minutes. So I'll be sure to answer as many questions as I can there and try to cover more of the strategic networking topic also. But yeah, totally understand if you have to jump off at some point. And like I said, if I don't get to your questions, I'll be sure to cover that in tonight's webinar. And then those of you that sign up for the newsletter, you'll definitely get a recording also of this lunch session and also the 8 p.m. session. But yeah, let's give it a couple more minutes. And like I said earlier, if you can chat in where you're dialing in from or specific questions you want to have answered or what topic you would like to learn in today's session, that would really help me. So if you can chat that in, and that's usually on the right-hand side. Yeah, so that's usually on the right-hand side. If you can scroll down a little bit, you should be able to see the chat box. And next to your name, you can type in your questions. And like I said, Vavara is going to help me collect all your questions. So if somehow I don't get to answering your questions in the lunch session, I'll be sure to do that in the extended session for tonight, which is on at 8 p.m. Okay. And again, thanks all of you for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to join me today to learn more about strategic networking. And the reason why I think this is such an important topic, I know in class I cover personal branding with you guys about how you already have a brand and you already can gain some visibility with the people around you. But it's also important to know about the network around you and what types of network to build so that you can better leverage your message and what it is that you do, especially some of you just coming out as students or some of you just finishing your certificate or degree. You'll really need to gain that visibility so that employers can find you or graduate school can see the talent in you, and then employers can also take advantage of the skills that you bring to the job. So I am going to talk more about that based on some of the strategic network theories that I've learned from Harvard Business School and also from computer science, actually. So I am going to get started. I know we only slotted 30 minutes. So there is a recording. So if somehow you need to jump off, just make sure you sign up for the newsletter and I'll be able to get the recording to you. Okay, so just bear with me for a second while I do the share screen. It's going to do a little funky infinity screen thing, and then you'll be able to see this slide. Okay. And let me wait just a second for this slide so I'll show up for everybody. And this is basically a meeting that or talk that I gave earlier in the year. It was over at Launch Bio. And so here was a room full of scientists and entrepreneurs who were hearing more about personal branding, similar to what I talked about in class. And really, what I want to emphasize today to you is to think about how to build a network so that you can become more visible and make a bigger impact with the people around you. Because I think networking tends to get a bad name in terms of, oh, you're just at a big meeting room full of people, exchanging business cards, meeting all these strangers. But I do want to show you that there's a way to look at it more strategically. And like I said, based on some of the Harvard Business School theories and also theories from computer science that can better help you understand how to build that network and become more visible. And again, I think most of you already linked in with me, but if you do need to get in touch with me, that's the best way to do that. So let me get to the next slide in terms of what I'm going to cover today. So there are different types of network. And so I want to kind of explain how to look at them and then really give you the reasons why you need to build that strategic network. And also to kind of separate what's a resource network versus an idea network, because those two are also different. So not only are they different types of network, there are also ways to really think about how to build this such that your brand can be more visible to the people around you and the audience that you're trying to build. And also remember, if you have any questions, do feel free to chat in, and I'll be sure to check in with you guys as I go along. So this is a picture that I use. So this is from a Harvard Business Review article about Paul Revere. So Paul Revere is this guy who's famous for warning the Americans. So at the time when the Americans were fighting the British back in the 1700s, so the British originally had America as a colony, right? And so the colonialists, including Paul Revere, did not want the British to control them. And so when the colonial Americans were fighting back, the British also decided that they needed to, gain better control over the Americas. And the way they did that was they invaded Boston. So Paul Revere was this famous colonial American that warned everybody that the British soldiers were coming and that they better be ready to fight off the British. And so in this picture, you can see that the British are the horses in red. They're over here in the middle. So if you look at the geography of Boston, Boston Harbor is the blue you see on the right, Boston Harbor. And then Paul Revere is the guy who rode his horses on this blue path. So he rode his horses from Charlestown up towards Medford, went to Lexington and Concord and warned everybody, right? So he did it. But then, in fact, there were two other colonial Americans who also were warning about the British coming. And there's a green path that was written by William Dawes. And he also took a very similar path to Paul Revere, starting from Boston, here on the right, and then went over to Roxbury, Brookline, crossed the Charles River to Cambridge, where Harvard is, and then also ended up in Lexington and Concord. And then there's even a third person named Dr. Samuel Prescott, who also warned the Americans using the purple path. And so what's interesting about this is that Paul Revere did pretty much the same ride as this William Dawes guy, but then somehow in the history books, we only know about Paul Revere. So why is that? So again, look at the blue path versus the green path. Very similar, right? They both did the same distance in terms of ride and warned the same number of people. But then why was it that Paul Revere is the most famous person, most famous colonial American? Well, let's take a look at their network. So on the upper right is Paul Revere's network. And then on the lower right is William Dawes' network. And so Paul Revere had a very interesting network in that even though he rode from Charlestown to Medford to Lexington and all the other places, he had a more open network. Notice that the people that he warned all had other people that they were able to kind of spread viral. But then somebody like William Dawes, even though he rode to the same number of nodes, right? He made the same number of stops as Paul Revere. But in fact, all the people that he warned already all knew each other. So see the difference between Paul Revere's open network that spread to other people versus William Dawes, even though he warned the same number of people, they all already know each other. So it wasn't like there was additional people that could be warned. And this is why I made use of the Hamilton. This is the famous musical. Hamilton says history has his eyes. So history rewarded the person that was the most effective at warning people, right? Because Paul Revere actually had the best network because his message went viral, right? His message went viral and people were able to be warned in time to avoid being attacked by the British. So that's why you need a different kind of network. You need a network that looks more like Paul Revere's. So there are three types of network. This is based on Hermina Ibarra, who's a Harvard Business School professor, who talked about the three types. So without getting into the first two, the one I really want to focus on is strategic network, right? So operation network, just think of it as that's just basically something that you build at work. That's kind of the people you work with to get your work done, right? So at school, it could be the people that are your fellow students, or at work, it would be the people that work with you on your teams, right? And then personal network are usually people who you might know professionally, or you might actually know through your family or friends, right? So these are the people that are able to help you or coach you or take a personal interest in how you develop. And then thirdly would be the strategic network. And this is really the network that's about your future, because having a strategic network, these are the people that are going to help you figure out where you want to go. You know, they can help you support or identify other people that you need to know. And also people in your strategic network are the people that can cross-reference you into other organization or other units, or the network that's not normally in your personal or operational, right? So your strategic network, like I said, it's more distinct than your personal or your operational network that you build at work. So again, I want to get to why it is that you have to have this strategic network. So as you saw from the Paul Revere example, by having the people that know additional people in different kinds of network, they can help you cross into organizational boundary. So cross over the boundary and also cross over the functional boundaries, right? So the people that know other people can get you into new organizations or new functions. They also can help you test out new ideas. So again, people who are authors or people who are scientists, they should seek out people that are different than their field or have different perspective so that they can help sort of test out the idea. Also, if you're an entrepreneur, getting to know people that are either media contacts or financial contacts can help them launch into a new platform. Or also by being those strategic nodes, you can also refer people, right? You can refer people into a new job or into a new position. And definitely, like I said, entrepreneurs need funding, and they definitely need to build strategic networks so that they can get the funding and also get the media contacts and maybe some other support from other entrepreneurs too. So this is all about the reasons why you need it. And we also need to distinguish a little further too. So in terms of your strategic network, you should also think about, are they important in terms of the idea networking, or are they important in terms of resource networking? So let me explain. In idea networking, what you're doing is basically you're testing out new ideas, right? And I think a good way to think about it would be like those scientific conferences, or at UCSD, there's a lot of poster sessions. And so these type of conferences, people are looking for surprising ideas. They're trying to gain new perspectives, or they're trying to test out whatever ideas they had by talking to other people in their field or a little bit out of their field. So you might be looking for people that are not exactly in your same research topic, or you definitely want to talk to experts, right, that are in your field as well as out of your field. So very much about testing out ideas, and innovation, right, will be where idea network is very important. Now, on the other side would be the resource network. And so resource network is where we either can get funding, so right, financial resources, or media contacts that can get us to be noticed and to be more visible to other people or other fields. And definitely for those of you, like I said, are just graduating or getting a certificate, you can really further your career, right, by tapping into a resource network. So here, what you're doing is targeting people that are, I wouldn't say they're similar people, but they're people that have those resources. So again, if you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for investors, or you're looking for venture capital, or you're looking for angel investors who can take their money and invest with your company. Or, like I say, if you're a job seeker, you're looking for people that can have access to those jobs that you're looking for, or know of people that know about the jobs, right? So these are the resources, people who are capable of helping you get those referrals. Okay, so we talked about the strategic network, right, that are different from personal and also different from operational. But here's also another way to think about it in terms of how the internet works, because I've talked about the network effect back in class. And if you just have two people talking to each other on the phone, there's not too much of a network to speak of there, right? It's just a one-to-one relationship. And if you have 5 telephones, you can see that this is definitely more, this has more impact. The 5 telephone network can actually reach 10 people here, right? And then if you actually have 12 telephones, you have 12 users on that network, you actually can make 66 connections. So you can see how by adding more and more of these telephones, that the network effect is exponential, right? You're reaching more and more people. And so this is the computer science theory part of strategic networking. So think about in LinkedIn, you have people that are either friend of a friend, right? So that's a second degree connection, or friend of a friend of a friend, that's a third degree connection. And definitely in San Diego, most of the people you would need to know is probably within a third degree connection, because San Diego is kind of a smaller city and people do tend to know each other. So because of that, I'm going to refer you to this resource called Friend of a Friend book by David Burkus. And it's important that we get to know people that can help us get introduced. And that's where you have to think about who are the people that know about jobs, or who are the people that know about venture capital, or who are the people that know about the telecom industry, or who are the people that know about digital marketing. And think about how to get to know those people so that you can get introductions. And I know I've mentioned this in the LinkedIn training that I've done in class, that through LinkedIn, you can usually see whether somebody's a second degree or third degree connection. And so second degree will be easier, that when you can ask a friend to make that introduction, it's much harder to get a friend of a friend of a friend to make an introduction, right? And this is where being active in social media is helpful, because the more you're visible, the more likely people are able to make that introduction for you. And that's because, again, back to my point about the nodes, the people in Paul Revere's network, the more people you know, the more you're going to become a social media influencer, right? And the more you blog or create good content or become known for an expertise, then people will know who you are and will want to come to you, right? To get introduction to the people that you are in touch with, or people or the audience that you're constantly interacting with. And so a lot of my students do ask, well, yeah, I know there are influencers out there, but they're just too high above me, right? They're just people that I would never get to know, or they're third degree. And, what are the chances of getting an introduction into a third degree connection? Well, what I want to say is one example is, in fact, I recently gave an interview, or I did an interview with Magdalena Yosio, who's the first investor at Salesforce.com. And I don't know her, and she's definitely beyond a third degree connection. But the way I made or reached out to her is that she wrote a book about helping women become more empowered in the new economy. And she grew up in the tech industry, and she had a lot of good advice in her book about how to help women become more better self-advocates in the tech industry. And so I read the book and I reached out to her and told her that, hey, I work with a lot of female engineers and also scientists, and I would love to make something like use her book as part of my teaching. And she was kind enough to also say, yeah, of course, she'd be happy to do that. So I do think that it's helpful to make those connections, even if you don't know the people, but either through the book that they've written, or I mentioned the Idea Network earlier. So people that have written really good blog posts, or journalists who wrote an article that you really, really like, they usually put their email at the end. Reach out to those people, because they are these key influencers, right? And they are the people that can put you in touch with somebody else you might want to talk to. And the thing, and I know I've said this in class too, I know if you're looking to, say get a job at Illumina, and you do meet a person from Illumina, I would say the first thing to do is not to immediately ask for, hey, can you help me get a job at Illumina? But rather, and this is where I'm going to get to the tips. This is where you might want to, think of a way to help that person. So again, tonight I can give you more examples about how to find those key influencers and connect with them, and then make sure that you stay in touch and use that connection well. Okay, so let me get to the rest because we only have about 7 minutes left. And those of you that can stay on the webinar, I'd be happy to answer more questions. So like I said, you definitely want to do blogging or publishing your ideas. Or in my case, I post the videos of interviews that I do, or contribute, right? You can contribute to a lot of different groups, whether that is on the UCSD websites or LinkedIn has a lot of different groups. The other thing I would really suggest for you guys is what's called value-added volunteering. So basically, look for volunteering projects where you not only learn a lot, you'll also meet a lot of people. So one example is that San Diego has a big San Diego Startup Week at the end of June. And they're always looking for volunteers, right? Because you can volunteer to take tickets, you can volunteer to write about the sessions, you can volunteer to help them organize. And I think by doing that, you'll really get a chance to meet the different people, and you'll also get a chance to maybe even sit in a panel or meet some speakers, right? And again, that's a chance to meet those key influencers. Also, I know earlier there was a question when I looked at the email that somebody asked about, well, what happens if I'm more of an introvert? You know, I'm my culture makes me more introvert. You know, I'm not really good at just talking to strangers right away. I would say one idea is to kind of organize your own event. So maybe you'll want to know more about the San Diego tourism industry. You can go to the San Diego Tourism Bureau and talk to them about maybe their events that they're doing. And since you guys know a lot of international students, there could be a way that you can bring together the international students and then work with the tourism people to come up with some sort of campaign, right? So again, look for ways where you can use something you bring to the table and then add it to the group that you're trying to help. So that's what I mean by value-added volunteering. And definitely, I think online, you should start developing your own followers. Like I said, either if you're blogging or you're posting LinkedIn, try to, always think of ways to add value. Or offline, you might do it through hobbies and clubs. Okay. And then my tips for nurturing your network is always, like I said, don't do the, hey, I'm looking for a job, can you help me? Because I think that's a little too, like what we're saying, right? If you're introverted, that's a little too much to ask. And I think what you want to do is try to help other people first. And this is what I call pay it forward. So try to think of ways, the people that you meet, how you can be helpful to them. And I know a lot of you think, well, I'm just a student. How can I help? Well, there are always ways you can help. You can say, hey, I just did a project on this app. Maybe there's some way I can help you guys figure out a way to do an app for your company. Or I can help you research a specific field in my country, right? And so, like I said, give before you receive. And definitely listen to the people, and because most people don't always want to talk about work. So maybe they're talking about their sons, or maybe they're talking about a hobby. So again, you can find ways to be helpful that way. Maybe help them figure out where to go for the hobby, or a way to help their sons to get into UCSD, something like that, right? Give them advice about what it's like to go to UCSD. Definitely, you can be, if you're in a big company, talk to the executives when you get the chance, when they say, hey, I'd love to hear some feedback about this or that. Email them back, stop by, when they have their open door policy, stop by, try to offer the feedback. Just like I said, make sure that you are not just giving them comments out of nowhere, but find those key initiatives that these executives are trying to introduce. And then as they send an email or as they asking people for feedback, that's when you go and actually give the feedback. And one last thing I would say is that, like I said, you may not think you have such a great network, but I'm sure there's always somebody that you might be able to make an introduction to. So think about who are the people that you can make an introduction to help the people in your network, right? So that's a way to pay it forward. Okay, 2 minutes left. Real quick, I'm just going to go over this. And like I said, tonight's webinar, I'll get a chance to talk about it some more. So at the end of the slide deck I'm going to send out, I have a network diagnostic. And this is where you can actually think about up to 16 people that you think are important in your network, and then that you had direct contact in 6 months. So there are people that give you information or resources. They can help you solve problem at work, or they help giving you developmental advice. They also could be inside or outside your organization, or could be some, just make sure it's somebody that you know is very important part of your network that you wouldn't want to lose, right? So once you put those names down, then try to use the arrows or lines to see if they know each other. And so I've actually done this exercise. And in my case, look at the bottom, mine ended up being too open. I have a lot of contacts in all kinds of different industries, but they don't necessarily all know each other. So mine actually looks very much like the one on all the way on the left that says too open. And then those of you that just starting out, you'll probably find that a lot of your network is very much closed or somewhat closed. So ideally, like what we saw with Paul Revere's network, it's something that's open or very open, and it tends to get you into the influencers that are into other industries or into other fields. Okay, so again, like I said, tonight I can talk more about that and tell you more about this network diagnostic. Okay, I'm not going to cover the personal branding because we don't have time, but I do want to get to the questions. So Liz, I know you mentioned that the leveraging the brand. So as I said, the strategic network, I think the networking, like I said, people give it a bad name because they think it's just like going to a room full of strange people and trying to hand out your business card. I don't recommend that way to go. But what I like to see is that you think about the field or think about the people that you really would like to get to know. And that does take some research on your part to think about, okay, what's my field, right? Is it, CRM? Is it software as a service? And then start narrowing down, right? So how many SaaS, software as a service company, are here in San Diego? And then from there, who are the key people that are active, right? Is it CEOs? Is there a software as a service society? And then from there, maybe I want to think about going to some of their events, or like I said, do the value added volunteering. And those are all ways that you can, I think, get more information about what's going on in the San Diego arena, and also kind of get some more experience, right? And like I said, for the introverted amongst us, offer to help, right? Offer to help. You don't have to be at the event handing out your business card, but what you can do is, offer to put together a panel, or offer to help them do research, or offer to figure out, if there's some sort of outreach that they're trying to do with either UCSD or back in your country. Those are all ways that you can use your unique selling point, back to my personal branding, use something that you have that nobody else has to kind of make that connection. Okay, let me get to the additional resources. So I do have the Kaizen.thinkific.com classes that are hosted on thinkific.com. And that has some of my lectures and also a class that I put together on personal branding if you do want to find out more about the personal branding topic. You also can click here for the CCL Leadership Network Diagnostic Tool. So if you sign up for the newsletter, or maybe we can also have Avara post the link, that's at the end of the slide deck. So you can use that link to get to the network diagnostic tool. We also have the David Burkus book that I mentioned, The Friend of a Friend. And I think this is a good way to think about how to reach the second or third degree contact on LinkedIn. And today's talk, I think, has owes some of the basis to the Startup of You book that Reid Hoffman, he's the LinkedIn founder. He wrote about how to think of yourself as a startup, and also we said that personal branding is something we need to do, right? Because already we have that personal brand. So better to be strategic about it and think about how we want to gain that visibility. And lastly, as I said, sign up for the webinar deck, and then you can get some more resources. Are there any more questions? Can I have you guys chat in anything else? Those of you that are sticking around for a little bit. I'll wait for a second. And like I said, if you sign up for the email letter, we should be able to get all the deck to you. And I do have a Google link to this deck. So yeah. And then also we'll have the recording on the YouTube as well. I'll just hang out for a second till I know if there's anything else I can answer. Let me switch it back to the video. Can I answer anything else? Okay. Okay, so yeah, like I said, sign up for the newsletter so I can send you the recording as well as the link. And yeah, and if you can join us at the 8 p.m., I'd love to see you there. Like I said, I can talk more about the network diagnostic and explain that in more details. And thanks everybody for joining me today. Bye, everyone.